The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 40th online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peace Point with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhamma International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Last time you saw me, we looked at liberation, course, and fine-tuning of the mind. The Dhamma talk today, we will revisit one of my earlier broadcasts from 2020, entitled An Introduction to Meditation and Spiritual Transformation, Developing Vision, to make some repairs to the recording. So today's session will run to about an hour and a quarter with a 20-minute talk, 30 minutes of meditation, and then finishing up with 25 minutes of viewer questions and news updates. As usual, in case anyone out there is actually listening, this session I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering those questions next time round. So let's start by looking at the interplay between everyday life and our ability to meditate well. Today's topic, we'll look at the challenges we need to face up to when using meditation for spiritual transformation, while ascertaining which parts of ourselves to change and which parts we may need to put up with for now. So let's start by looking at the lifestyle considerations that apply to meditation and how we can build our lifestyle into one where we are enhancing our well-being. In other words, meditation and spiritual transformation. Before going any further today, I would like to point out some features of the special sort of mindset that you need to make a success of spiritual transformation, namely, how to keep an open mind, absorb what you can immediately, be prepared to sweat it out, spend a little time on it each day, leave aside anything that lays claim to superiority, and create your own personalized approach. First consideration is to keep an open mind, because many of the things which you meet with on the spiritual transformation journey may appear strange because they come from ancient times. Therefore, you may need to suspend judgment of things that don't make immediate sense to you, while giving yourself time to ruminate on those things at your leisure. The second consideration is how to absorb what you can immediately, generally the practical aspects. You may not be able to grasp everything at once, but what you can manage to pick up is to your benefit. Not everyone gains something from everything in these sessions, but there will be something always for a limited number of things that strike a chord with particular people. In this session and those that follow, I will try to provide the broadest possible variety of topics in the hope that somewhere in that large variety might be the very thing which you are looking for. But sometimes, because even you yourself are not exactly sure what you're looking for, I will cast a wide Dharma net, at least to start with. The third consideration is that you may need to be prepared to sweat it out, because meditation and spiritual transformation are both of the nature of delayed gratification, since neither give results immediately. Of course, meditation gives immediate results within the mind, and if you are observant enough, even from an early stage, you can start to see the changes and progress in the mind as a result of meditation. However, it takes much longer for the changes to give their effects on the level of the personality or on the level of lifestyle. Insights also may dawn gradually, accumulating slowly like flying hours. Perspectives gained or the understandings coming from meditation may take years before you can live up to them. Spiritual wisdom on the level of understanding takes much longer to integrate into everyday life. This is why sometimes we have to be prepared to sweat it out. I once talked to a man in the forestry business where, after planting a tree, you have to wait at least 20 years to get a return on your investment. He said it is very hard to find investors in forestry because most people want instant profits, rewards, and results. It's hard to find people who are prepared to wait to see the results of all the work they've done. Meditation and spiritual transformation, however, are in the category of work where you do need to have a little bit of patience in order to see the results. But the results, when they do come, may be more worthwhile than you ever expected. The fourth consideration is you may need to spend a little time on it every day because most of the training involves change in our habits. Therefore, they concern the things that we do habitually. The fifth consideration is that it's advisable to leave aside anything that lays claim to superiority over other paths of spiritual transformation. Though you are studying a specific tradition of meditation here, it doesn't mean that there are not features of other traditions that are useful to learn about. I hope that you never become so entrenched in your learning that you don't think that anyone else has any new knowledge to offer you anymore. Lastly, you may need to personalize your approach. Try to find your own way of approaching the subject, and that will mean that, to some extent, you have managed to internalize the tradition. So, considering that as listeners to a spiritual transformation live stream, you are already much more motivated than those who would not spend their time on such things. Have you ever wondered about the origins of your aptitude for spiritual transformation? It's likely that you got the majority of your inspiration from your parents, who have acted both as exemplars and guides in shaping your personal values. Although it must be said that some people may have got such values in spite of their parents. In the daily routine, our parents may have laid down for us, for example, by setting a time for us routinely to get up, go to bed, eat with the family, or by being fastidious about our manners and the way we speak and dress. However, our parents' contribution to our aptitude for spiritual transformation is not the whole story. Even siblings in the same household may sometimes end up with very different aptitudes for spiritual transformation, even though they may have had the same upbringing. Some come to the same meditation class, even those from the same family. They hear the same talk, but take away a very different message, even though their parents' life and household are identical. This is why sometimes it's so hard to pin down exactly what sort of influences help or hinder our spiritual quest. Of course, for most of us, our parents or guardians are the biggest initial main influence on our life, because for the first 10 years of our life, they are the example we see every day. Left to our own devices, we would be unlikely to develop too many good habits. But if we have parents or guardians who insist on good habits, we then have the chance to pick up on these to a greater or lesser extent. Nonetheless, parents are not the whole of the story. Readiness for spiritual transformation may also be a question of age and maturity, since there seems to be an evolution which takes place over the course of life, by which people become less selfish and more spiritually oriented in response to their life experience. But again, some people become old and bitter, becoming none the wiser in response to their lives. Apart from upbringing and life experience, it comes down to how good we are at facing up to 3 challenges, namely vision, integration, and communication. But I'll come back to these in a few moments. I once met an American who asked what the point was of investing time and effort into meditation. They were totally unconvinced by an Asian lady who answered that she meditated because it made her happy. It is much the same as asking someone why they would want to bother climbing to the top of a mountain. I think in current terminology, the word happiness is probably undervalued, and it would be more convincing to say that the motivation to put in time into meditation or even climbing a mountain comes down to the way it makes you feel your life is somehow more meaningful. At the very least, spiritual transformation can help us to overcome that feeling of restlessness that can often plague the mind. Sometimes it takes extreme circumstances in life to shake us free of such restlessness. Examples of things in life where people are forced to confront their limitations include when our children start to grow up into little monsters, and we realize we can only blame ourselves for not having brought them up better. Or when things cause us to lose our temper, or when we realize we are unable to change a bad habit, or when we are confronted by the suffering of life, for example, by an bereavement, or less extremely, the culture shock encountered when traveling or undergoing self-isolation, or when we are unable to become better managers of other people, or when we are caught in dilemmas, or when we are unable to keep a friendship or a marriage from breaking up. Unfortunately, society in general doesn't teach us comprehensive ways to deal with these problems. It just gives us therapy for the stress and trauma fallout, once the damage has already been done. Spiritual transformation is an anathema to our throwaway society and short attention spans. Many of us have become desensitized to information on deeper values because we are spoon-fed with dumbed-down media simplifications of everything. You probably know the expression, "you can't put a gallon in a pint pot." These days, if messages don't appear in 6-foot-high, full-color letters with an attractive presenter next to them, we fail to notice them at all. Again, such competition, valuable insights tend to slip into background noise because it doesn't advertise itself. Modern society teaches us to care only about appearances while ignoring the inner life, like people who pay attention only to the packaging rather than the content. On the contrary, spiritual transformation teaches us to be soft outwardly and strong inwardly. So aren't there memes that package spiritual transformation in a more memorable way? The good news is that historically there are many models useful for spiritual transformation, whether it be that of the 10 Bulls or the 38 Blessings of Life. It could also have included the Kabbalah, or John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, or the 12-step program. There are many other models of spiritual transformation, but in the limited time available, I've chosen to elaborate 2 as examples here. With the 10 bulls or the 10 ox herding pictures, which are derived from the Zen tradition, we have 10 stages, and you can follow the numbers on the slide. In the first stage, we see a young boy who has decided that he wants to engage in a spiritual quest. And in the spiritual quest, his search is for the true nature of the mind, which is symbolized in the search by a wild bull. In the second stage, we see the young boy has come across some footprints of the bull. Even though he cannot see the bull yet, he is encouraged because he now has some proof of the existence of the bull and can follow these footprints. In the third stage, we see that the young boy gets his first glimpse of the bull itself, but from a distance. Although he has not managed to tame the bull yet, he is further encouraged because now he has seen the bull in the flesh instead of having just footprints to follow. In the fourth stage, the young boy has taken a rope and lassoed the bull. He is in a struggle to get the bull under control because, of course, the bull is much stronger than him. The solution is for the boy to tie the rope around an immovable post and let the bull struggle until it runs out of energy. This is the equivalent to the first stages of meditation, where you tie your mind down to an object of meditation, such as a crystal ball, to stop it wandering and to get it to settle. In the fifth stage, the boy has managed to tame the bull. as we might manage to tame the mind after we get better at meditation. He is now able to lead the bull wherever he needs it to go. In the sixth stage, we see the boy has managed to tame the bull to the point that the rope is no longer necessary, and he can manage to sit on the back of the bull and play his flute as he goes along. In the seventh stage, the bull has completely disappeared, and we see the boy sitting outside, enjoying the moonlight, experiencing happiness, having discovered that the bull was not the object of his quest at all, but happiness was. Meanwhile, the bull, or the mind, was just a means to an end. The eighth stage is sometimes known as the void, or nothingness, because even the boy, as separate from the universe, has disappeared. I imagine that he has become one and the same as the happiness he has discovered, with an enlightenment-like experience. In the ninth stage, the river flows, the leaves of the weeping willow fall, and the birds sing and fly. The world just is. Again, the boy is no longer the important thing, as he has transcended his sense of individuality. He can appreciate the world for what it is. In the 10th and final stage, the boy returns to the marketplace, meeting up with an old traveler there as he shares his insights for the benefit of the world. This is a description of the stages of spiritual transformation as symbolized in the ox-herding woodcuts. An alternative description of the stages of transformation are shown in the 38 blessings of the Mangala Sutta, which have been simplified down into 10 stages that show the sequence of virtues which a practitioner needs to master, starting with the simple and easily understood ones and progressing sequentially to more abstract and transcendental ones. As you can see from the slide, we start by turning our backs on the old bad habits before moving on to turn towards new good habits. We make ourselves useful to society. We cultivate harmony in our family lives. We try to become a pillar of society. From there, we start to work directly with the mind, creating readiness of mind, instilling ourselves with basic virtues, then higher virtues, eradicating all the defilements in the mind, and eventually enjoying the fruits of freedom from the mental defilements. These memes of spiritual transformation are like maps of journeys that help us to see more easily the ways in which everyday life and spiritual transformation can support one another. So to come back to that important difference I mentioned earlier between spiritual cultivators, I'd like to talk about the ability to face up to challenges. The moment you start to develop yourself, you are opening yourself up to many new challenges which people in general never have to face in their lives. If you never even try to develop yourself, you wouldn't need to worry about spiritual headwinds. However, the moment you set yourself up as an example of virtue cultivation, you suddenly become a target of people's judgy gossip about moral high ground, or, on the contrary, being accused of being a hypocrite. If you set a target for how you want to develop yourself, then you open yourself up to more chance of disappointment than the person who never entertained such an ambition for themselves. However, in brief, and we will expand on the details over the next few sessions, there are three major challenges which people face on the path of spiritual transformation. The first of these is development of vision. You need to develop conducive vision, attitudes, and perspectives, even before you start to develop yourself. You need to have the sort of vision where you are able to confront the weaknesses you have in yourself, to know the limitations of yourself in order to go forward. It takes vision even to consider changing yourself at all. Some people think, however, if they are born a certain way, then they should stay like that. To have the sort of vision where you dare to consider changing yourself is already quite ambitious. Developing such vision is the first challenge which faces anyone who wants to transform themselves for the better. In this challenge, we include developing priorities and overcoming obstacles. The second is the challenge of integration and commitment to practice. You need commitment because if you are up against the habitual bad habits in your personality or your life, then you need to confront those things with new habits which are better. This is why when you need regularity and commitment to practice in order to overcome the bad habits. Commitment is not enough, however. You also need to integrate the insights you gain in your meditation into the more mundane aspects of your life. This is why commitment and integration are an important second challenge which faces those who want to transform themselves for the better. In this challenge, we include awareness of the way we use things and the way we make decisions and choices. Third challenge is developing effective channels of communication. It's all very well being the most wonderful person in the world, with the most patient and the most enthusiastic about transforming yourself, but if everyone else hates you as a result, or if you are unable to explain to them what you're doing, if you're unable to have a good relationship with the people around you, then again you fail because nobody lives in a vacuum. That's one of the biggest challenges which faces anyone in spiritual transformation, is successfully maintaining these channels of communication. In this respect, I speak from experience because I was a closet meditator for the first 18 months I started to meditate. Sometimes you have to know how to be able to introduce the subject of spiritual transformation to those around you in a diplomatic and sensitive way. Otherwise, those around you can obstruct your practice. For this reason, communication is a third major challenge that faces us on our path of spiritual transformation. Because we're not hermits who can live in a cave somewhere. We still live in society, we still work with real people. We have friends who are real people, and hopefully we are not going to lose them all as we further our spiritual practice. In this challenge, we include the way we get along with others, how well we're able to integrate inner and outer life, our approach to perfectionism, and our capacity for unconditional compassion and our appreciation of human dignity. So now, with all this talk of challenges to self-transformation, let's take a break halfway for some meditation, which today is entitled The Pathway to Nirvana. So at this time, we settle ourselves down for half an hour of meditation. If you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my guidance.
So, having paid homage to the triple gem together, now we sit for meditation. Gentlemen should sit in the cross-legged position, while ladies, who are not accustomed to sitting in the cross-legged position, can sit with their feet to one side if they prefer. You should have your right hand on your left hand, with both hands palm upwards, resting gently in your lap. The index finger of your right hand should be touching gently against the thumb of your left hand, both hands resting gently in your lap. Make sure your body is in an upright position, without slouching forward or leaning too far back, so that both your circulation and your breathing are relaxed and unimpeded. Because everything about the meditation ought to be relaxed. If you are too forced as to your posture, then you will not be comfortable. If you are slouching, then you will get aches and pains. So close your eyes very gently, with your eyelids very gently touching closed. Never squeeze your eyes closed, and make sure there's no pressure around your eyes. Just close your eyes in an ordinary way. For meditation, it is necessary to relax our mind, and in this respect, the Lord Buddha taught the words Jako Patinisako Vimutti Analayo, that we must let go of all things, not being attached to them. Not being attached to our physical body, whether we feel stiff or whether we feel uncomfortable, we should just ignore these things. We mustn't worry about them, because the body we are using for meditation is only like a tool for the mind, to be used in order to reach liberation. Liberation from defilements, in order to reach towards nirvana. Our body is only transient, and we have only temporary use of it. Thus, no matter what may happen, we will not be interested in our body. We must let go of attachment for our body and even for our life. Something we let go of in homage to the teachings of the Lord Buddha. So, no matter what happens, we will not be attached to or worried about our bodily condition. We are going to bring our mind to a standstill. It's our only aim in life, to train the mind to a point where it can be pure and clear, to attain the body of enlightenment inside, not only attaining it, but to become one and the same as it, to know who is our real, true self inside. That is, the body of enlightenment of the Arahant inside of us. And to reach this point in our meditation can be said to be our obligation as a human being, as the Lord Buddha used the words katang karaniyang, something which we have to do for as long as our body is still viable. Once our mind comes to a standstill, we will be able to liberate ourselves from the cycle of existence. So there is no use in being attached to our own body or the bodies of other people, especially those of our relatives or of our husband or wife, because all of these things end up bringing us suffering eventually. They bring us anxiety, absent-mindedness, worries and doubts. They bring all sorts of suffering to us simply because of the fact that we are worried about them. The fact that we are worried about them is because we don't realize our real, true aim in life, the real reason for having our human body in life. Once we don't know about our real aim in life, then it opens the way to hundreds of causes of suffering in our life. So we have to let go of our body. If we don't do it now, then we have to do it anyway at the time when we come to the end of our lives. So we should make our mind relaxed and allow our mind to come to a standstill. Today, as we meditate, we'll take the opportunity to explore the nature of the pathway to nirvana. But before we do that, for those who are newcomers to the meditation, we should familiarize ourselves with the 7 bases of the mind first. According to the original teachings of the Dhammakaya tradition, by the founder, the great abbot of Wat Phak Nam, otherwise known as Phra Mongkon Thep Muni, the originator of this meditation tradition. Because he always started by teaching the pathway of the mind, the pathway of all living beings, the pathway by which all beings are born and die, by which the mind enters and leaves the body at conception and death respectively. The first point on this path, the first base of the mind, is at the nostril. For ladies, the left nostril; for gentlemen, the right nostril. The second base of the mind is inside the nose, just next to the corner of the eye. For ladies on the left side, for gentlemen on the right side. The third base is at the center of the skull, on the same level as the eyes. This point, and all the subsequent points, are the same for ladies and for gentlemen. The fourth base is at the roof of the mouth. The fifth base is at the center of the throat, just above the Adam's apple. The sixth base of the mind is in the middle of the stomach, at the same level as the navel. Supposing you were to take 2 thin threads, the first running from your navel directly through your back on the horizontal axis, and the second running from the right side to the left side also horizontal on the same level. The point where these two lines intersect, no larger than a pinpoint, is called the sixth base of the mind. This is where a sphere of Dhamma is to be found, which is clear and bright, transparent, and about the same size as the yolk of an egg, with its center at the point of intersection of the two threads. This sphere of Dhamma is very important, because without this sphere it would be impossible to take birth in human form. If this sphere is bright, your life will prosper, but if this sphere becomes dull or darkened, then it predicts that life will soon bring you problems. Every human being has this sphere at their center, and the existence of the sphere is proof that anyone who makes an effort in their meditation to the point that they can bring their mind to a standstill can succeed in meditation. This is because they don't need to create anything new in their meditation. All they need to do is to tune in their mind to see what is already there. 2 finger breadths above this intersection of the two threads. Supposing you were to take your index finger and your middle finger together and to place them on the intersection of the two threads, then exactly that distance, the distance of 2 finger breadths above the intersection of the two threads, is what we call the 7th base of the mind. It is the precise center of our body, and in fact it's this final point which we are interested in. It's the most important of all the bases, of all 7 which we've already mentioned, because all the senses, whether it be eye, ear, nose, mouth, or sense of touch, are focused at this point. This point is the place from which we are born and from which the mind leaves the body when we die. When we are born, the spiritual component moves through all the 7 bases of the father. When the father and the mother come together for conception, the spiritual component of the baby to be born comes from the father to the mother, collecting up together with it the physical constituents, going down through the 7 bases of the mind, down to implant itself at the 7th base of the mind of the mother in the womb. When we pass away, it's the reverse process. The mind leaves the body starting from our own 7th base, straight through all the 7 bases, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and leaves our body by the 1st base, that is, via our nostril. It is also the location of our mind at the time of our falling asleep, and also at the time of our waking. When we come to the end of our human life, the mind leaves the body starting from our own 7th base, straight through all 7 bases, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, leaving our human body to seek for rebirth somewhere else in the cycle of existence. It doesn't matter whether the next birth will be as an angel or as an animal. If the dying person is destined for a future rebirth, their spirit has to leave the body via the 7 bases. However, if we don't want to be reborn anymore, the mind has to leave the body by a different path, which is directly through the center of the 7th base. It is an inward journey for the spirit rather than a journey to take it out of the body. If we are making the inward journey, it is different from making journeys in the outside world, where we have to use our feet to walk or we have to move around. In the outside world we have to think, we have to take action. However, if we want to make the inward journey, we have to start by stopping the mind. The most important point is this one which is 2 finger breadths above the level of the navel in the center of our body. It's here that we have to bring our mind to a standstill, and it's this place which we have to become familiar with. But in practice, you can just remember it as the point which is roughly in the middle of your stomach. The description so far is only just to become familiar with the rough position of the center of the body. so that you know where to place your attention when you're meditating. We have to start by giving ourselves the feeling that our mind has come to a standstill at the center of the body. We can do this by giving ourselves the feeling that our mind is visualizing a sphere or a crystal Buddha image at the center of our body. In fact, it can be any object at all which we are familiar with, which has a positive association for us. All we do is remember such an image or visualize such an image at the center of our body instead. It's a way of seeing an image at the center of our body, not seeing with the eyes, but seeing with the mind. For those of you who can see the blue-colored top view of the Buddha image shown on the computer display or television screen, also this is a very useful image which you can use. Establish your mind at the center of the body, in just the same way that we might tether a wild animal to a tree. We tether the mind to the center of the body by using a visualized mental object. The image is like an anchor to keep the mind at the center of the body the whole of the time. If we bring our mind back here each time it wanders, before long we will find out that the mind will start to stay there the whole of the time. As the mind becomes established at the center of the body, it will become able to fall through the center. In fact, all we need to do is to bring our mind to a standstill at the center of the body, to allow the mind to do this. It is not necessary to do anything else. Simply doing this will set the conditions that will lead us to the beginning of the pathway in a way which we never expected. Once our mind becomes properly adjusted, the sphere inside ourselves will start to expand outwards, enlarging outwards, becoming softer, and revealing at its center a pathway which leads further inside. We will find that there is only one pathway, a single pathway which leads towards nirvana, a pathway which the Lord Buddha referred to as Ekalyana Magga. It is the mainstream which has no alternative way. Thus, for anyone whose mind is not at a standstill yet, we should use the following advice. We have to pretend to ourselves that our mind is already at the center of the body. In fact, we are fooling ourselves a little bit by assuming that. But from the fact that we are happy to place our mind somewhere in the center of our stomach, even though it might not be exactly at the point of the center of the body, the fact that we allow our mind to be free of worry at that point, and do this the whole of the time, by day and by night, before long the mind will find its own way to the center of the body. Once our mind becomes properly adapted, steadfast at the center, then it will come precisely to the center of the body. We will not see brightness in the beginning, but we will have the feeling that there is spaciousness inside, as if our mind is light in weight and at ease. Sometimes we may feel as if we could almost float. Some people have the lesser feeling, which would be more like mere spaciousness inside, as if the breathing becomes more refined, or as if we are alone in empty space. Sometimes we may feel merely that our body seems to expand inside, and it may do so more in one direction than in another. Sometimes we may feel as if it is expanding upwards, so that we feel that we grow so tall that our head might reach the ceiling. Sometimes it feels as if we were contracting, as if our body were being pulled down towards the ground. Some people feel as if they were falling down through the center of the body. If it is less refined than that, sometimes we may feel as if the body is swaying, as if we were sitting on a boat or as if we were being rocked in a cradle. If it is less refined than this still, sometimes we may feel as if our hair is standing on end, or we may feel that our heart is beating more vigorously than usual. Sometimes we may feel as if we have lost feeling in part of our body, sometimes just in our legs or in our hands, as if they have become numb, or as if we cannot feel them anymore. When some people come across such feelings, they make the mistake of giving up their meditation, thinking they have not succeeded. But in fact, these are all symptoms that our meditation is nearly at the point of progress. We ought to continue, and we should use our mindfulness to keep ourselves on track, instead of giving up when we come across these sort of experiences. So don't get excited, don't be elated by such experiences, and don't be afraid of anything, not even of death, but maintain your mindfulness and your wisdom, because once your mind reaches the point of equilibrium, you come to the point where there are no thoughts anymore. Even though you try to think, you cannot think of anything anymore. It's not like when you start out in your meditation where, even though you try not to think, you are always thinking about something. It will be almost as if you are not breathing anymore. But even though you're not breathing anymore, you feel that you have more happiness than if you were breathing. Your mind will be steadfast at the center of the body, and your body will seem to be upright of its own accord, so that you have no interest in the outside world anymore. Once your mind has become fully adapted, then the mind will swoop through the center of the body, and there will be a sphere coming up in the opposite direction, which is bright and clear. The smallest size is like a star in the night sky, or like the tip of a needle, very bright but tiny. For some people, for whom it may be of medium size, the sphere won't be the size of the full moon or of the shining sun. These spheres are what we call the sphere of Patamamagga. It arises at the center of the body. It never arises anywhere else. If it does arise anywhere else, then you know it's not the true experience, but rather a distortion of one's proper meditation experience, something which, technically speaking, we call vipassanupakilesa. But once the mind is properly adapted, we will see things bright and clear, but precisely at the center. It's this Patamamagga sphere which the great abbot of Wat Phra Naham referred to as the Dhammanupassana Satipatthana sphere. Loosely translated, it means the sphere of the initial path, because it's the trailhead to the path which will lead us to the noble pathway of all the Buddhist saints. Having seen this sort of thing, then this sort of purity is something which we should try to maintain the whole of the time, whether we are standing, walking, sitting or lying down, eating, or whatever task we may be doing. We should maintain it the whole of the time, reflecting at the center of our body, in order to maintain this state of mind. Whether our eyes are open or closed, we should see it the whole of the time, because this is the start of the pathway towards nirvana. If we can maintain ourselves on this path, then we will be on the right pathway to nirvana for every lifetime. We will never lead a life in an unskillful way anymore, and our life will be a life which is supreme. We will not be living our life by trial and error as we have done in the past. Sometimes when we think back over our life, we regret all the mistakes we have made in our life. But once we come to this point in our meditation, we have stillness of mind as our refuge. We will only make our way towards nirvana from this lifetime onwards, and our attainment of human birth in this life will have been worthwhile. It will have been a lifetime of profit for us, and it will be a sign that we will profit in every life, from this time onwards until we enter upon nirvana. It is something which will close the doors to unfortunate rebirth from this time onwards, so that we will not be able to fall into the unfortunate realms anymore. There will be no more straying from the path, and we will be reborn only in the fortunate realms, whether it be the 6 levels of heaven, the 16 levels of form Brahma realms, or the 4 levels of the formless Brahma realms, or Nirvana itself. Therefore, we should give full importance to these experiences, and must train our mind consistently and regularly. If we have not yet attained the Paramamagga sphere, we cannot trust that we will achieve success in life. If we are unable to attain it, then it is as if we have made a loss on our life. We have only things which will bring us regret later in life, and looking back over our life, we will have resentment in retrospect. As for the way in which we should attain the Paramamagga sphere, everyone should let go of all worries in the world, outside and on the inside, everything about the other beings, the environment, and even about ourselves. We should let go of all these things and bring our mind to the center of the body. We must be interested only in our mind, as if we were threading a needle through the center of our mind. Don't use too much effort, don't use too much force when thinking about the center of the body. Think of it as if you were dwelling on something, but do as if you were dwelling on it at the center of your body. And imagine a bright, clear crystal ball, rather like a diamond sphere there, a diamond sphere which has been polished without any blemishes or scratches, about the same size as the tip of our little finger. In fact, any size will do. And imagine this bright and clear like a diamond. It can be the size of the tip of our little finger, the size of the tip of our index finger, or the size of our eyeball. Simply imagine it gently. The only condition is that you should imagine it gently. If you think of it just in a relaxed way, then it will be clear. But if we use too much effort, it will give us a headache. If you find that you are getting a headache from imagining it, then relax and try again. Make sure that the sphere is bright and clear, spherical. If you can imagine how bright and clear a diamond is, then that is about the brightness we ought to be imagining for our crystal ball. Maintain our mind at a standstill at the center of our body, at the 7th base of our mind, because we already know all about this position in our body. Keeping our mind at the center of the body the whole of the time, 2 finger breadths above the 2 threads in the center of our body. Maintain it, remembering the image by imagining it with the mind, not by using our eyes to stare down at the center of our body. If we get the principle now, then we can practice it by ourselves without any problem in the future. But if we don't get it right this time round, then we may be off track every time we practice it in the future. So just relax and work at it slowly. Make sure you get the method right, remembering the bright, clear image at the center of the body, bright and clear, transparent and vivid in our mind, rather as if we were seeing it with our own eyes. But now we are seeing it at the center of our body, maintaining it the whole of the time. So now, may all of you be fulfilled in your wish to attain the triple gem inside yourself. Now each to their own meditation for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time.
Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gently finishing your practice. So to return to the topic of spiritual transformation, of the three challenges we mentioned at the beginning of this session, the first is the challenge of vision. Let's start by looking at some of the wisdom from the old AA Serenity Prayer that goes something like, accept the things we cannot change, have the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Why is vision important? Vision gives us aim, direction, and the momentum we need to transform ourselves for the better. It allows us to set our priorities. Without priorities, we often find that our time is taken up by things we don't want. Most people see their lives as nothing more than a stage upon which they play their chosen role. They think that the only choices life offers them is how colorful they wish to make their rather passive role. And they may think that life only has value for as long as they are young and strong, but loses its value whenever they get old or sick. On the contrary, vision brings both courage and wisdom about the potential of our life. It is like Orville and Wilbur Wright, who were the world pioneers of aviation. In the beginning, their project started simply with the dream of inventing a way for steel to float in the air. However, that dream, through their efforts, was to become a reality, realized in the shape of the world's first airplane. And because the brothers Wright dared to dream of something that had not yet come to be, down to the present day, their invention has become something that we can now all afford to take for granted. If we never take the first step, we cannot expect to achieve even the slightest success. If we dare to dream and take the first steps in the direction of our dreams, one day we will have the possibility to fulfill our dreams. Unfortunately, to transform ourselves successfully needs many qualities requiring vision, courage, to dare to change what we can see needs to be changed, and patience to tolerate what can't be changed immediately, and the necessary wisdom to tell the difference between what we can change and what we cannot yet change. Some people in the world are lucky enough to have all these qualities, but others have only some or none of them. And therefore, as a word of warning, we can describe 4 categories of people in the world in terms of their readiness for spiritual transformation. The first category are the blind, who, like the majority of folks in the world, are asleep and have no vision to see what is wrong with themselves or with life. The second category are the outsiders. The word outsiders comes from the 1956 book written by the philosopher Colin Wilson. Outsiders are those who do have vision to see what is wrong with themselves or with life, but they don't see a way to do anything about it. And they are therefore left feeling that they don't fit in because they can't pretend they are content with being asleep like the other people they see around them. The third category can be referred to as despairers. These are the people who have the vision to see what is wrong with themselves or with life, but try to change unchangeable things and are therefore driven to despair or suicide. Today I have 2 stories about people who were in so much despair that they wanted to commit suicide. Fortunately, both have happy endings, which is the only reason I dare talk about them on this show. First man who wanted to kill himself went to see the monk first. Normally, monks will never encourage anyone to commit suicide because if you die in a violent or a self-destructive way, you will not have a good rebirth for sure. However, the monk in this case was the Venerable Dattachiwo, the vice abbot of our main temple in Thailand, who is sometimes a little bit unorthodox. He didn't prohibit the man, but explained that if he wanted to have a good death, he should be doing something wholesome as he died. Therefore, he ought to go to the main chapel and meditate to the death by adopting the meditation posture and not moving again until he was dead. The man followed the monk's advice, and for the first half an hour, he still wanted to die. After that, his knees began to hurt, and he realized that if he couldn't stand the pain from his knees, he would be unlikely to tolerate the pain of dying. So at that point, he gave up the idea of committing suicide. There's a second story about a suicide case who went to see the Venerable Dattachiwo. This time, the monk said he had heard there were special pills that would provide a quick and painless death, and he asked the monk if he could give him any. The man was probably thinking about cyanide, but the monk gave him a laxative instead. The man swallowed the pills obediently, and after a short interval found himself running as fast as he could for the restrooms. Once inside and having vacated his bowels, he suddenly felt all the tensions in his life had miraculously disappeared, and he couldn't remember any more what had upset him so much that he would want to commit suicide in the first place. The moral of this story, without wishing to trivialize suicidal ideation, is that you should try to be realistic about your spiritual transformation goals, so that you don't ever find yourself in the category of despairers. Finally, we come to the category of those likely to be successful at spiritual transformation. They are those who have the vision to see what is wrong with themselves or with life, have the courage to change themselves, but who also have the wisdom to try to change only the things that are realistically changeable. Keeping yourself in the final of the four categories depends on the realization that the more personal strengths a person has, the more they can afford to change about themselves immediately. A person with less personal strengths will have to be a little less ambitious, at the same time a little bit more patient in the face of the things they cannot yet change. If we know about the nature of life, endowed with accurate vision, we can be realistic in knowing how to respond to it, knowing what to change and what to endure. The key to knowing what to change and what to endure is knowing your own strengths. To see your strengths, you have to look deeper than your surface. In order to really know yourself, then you have to consider yourself in terms of 7 factors, which will lead you to look much deeper inside yourself. And I've based these on a set of virtues found in the Vati Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya. It is a real mirror that you can hold up to yourself to see the deeper qualities of yourself. First quality is your level of inspiration. You need to believe in what you're doing. It means believing that the good deeds you are doing are really having an effect. For example, if you train to be a doctor, but you don't believe in the value of modern medicine, perhaps you'd be better off doing something you do genuinely believe in. In much the same way, how much you're inspired to do good deeds may affect your ability to see them through to completion. If you know, for example, that joining a meditation group or hearing a Dhamma talk will make you less lazy to meditate, then you may need to build meditation group attendance and Dhamma talks into your practice. If you want to go further than this and become a pillar of society, you need to be able not only to inspire yourself, but also to inspire those around you in society as well. Second quality is the integrity of your precepts. A person with integrity is probably the sort of person you would like to share your home with, or the sort of person you would trust to babysit your kids. The level of earnest in maintaining a baseline of morality and not taking advantage of others differs from person to person. A sloppy person might raise their hand with the thought of slapping a mosquito, but then remembers that they're trying to keep the precepts and so chases the mosquito away as quickly as they can, in case they change their mind and do some harm. Such a person's level of commitment to morality is still not very strong. A slightly more morally together person when they realize they're being bitten by a mosquito, might still harbor irritation and chase the mosquito away without any further anger or vengefulness. More accomplished person, whether a mosquito bites them or not, will maintain their basis of morality as a bright sphere, which they perceive at the center of their body the whole of the time. The third quality is how much experience you have had, literally, how much you have heard. This depends mainly on the depth of studies you have made in virtue and morality. It also depends how much you can remember of what you have learned and how much you understand too. Fourth quality is knowing the limits of your own generosity and the ability to let go of the things to which you are attached. Some people find it difficult to let go or give up the material things they possess. Other people will not teach others anything of what they know. Others still are unable to forgive others or let go of angry feelings that they have towards certain other people. If this is the case with you, then you need to know that you still have limitations in the degree of your generosity. Society can only survive because of the generosity between members of that society. If you are still selfish or angry with others, don't be surprised if people treat you as a nobody, because nobody is exactly who you are in the eyes of the society where everyone must share to be loved. The fifth quality is your level of knowledge, common sense and insight. Wisdom is more than just knowledge or worldly experience. Knowledge arises as a result of the power of the still mind to gain insight into the reality of situations, see problems to their roots. Society needs people of vision. If you develop such vision through your own insight, you will be that much more valuable and important to society. The sixth quality is your ability to answer questions on your toes without having the chance to go away and prepare beforehand. The more ability you have in this department, the more quick-witted you are. If you are still lacking in this department, then you need to make the effort to train yourself further by rehearsing properly before live performances. A possible seventh, not mentioned in the scripture but still relevant, I think, is how healthy you are. You can take on more spiritual transformation if you are in good health. If your health is compromised, you may need to reduce the scope of your ambitions for spiritual transformation. Apart from defining the limits of yourself in each of these 7 departments, you need to meditate every day, or at least sit for meditation before you go to sleep each night. If you know about your strengths, then you will also be able to size up your ability to change these things successfully for the better. If you are serious about this, then pin the list on your mirror and ask yourself every day which factor has improved since yesterday. However, if you size yourself up and find that you don't have the potential to change things, you will just have to put up with it until you do. This is not inertness from laziness or inaction, but it is patience based on our wisdom. Discover that there are 5 levels of patience. First level of patience is patience in the face of physical hardship, sometimes considered as patience on the kindergarten level. For example, being able to carry on doing your normal good deeds, even when it's hot or cold weather or raining. The second level of patience is patience in the face of physical suffering, sometimes considered as patience on the elementary school level, for example, sickness or pain. Some people can tolerate all sorts of hardship, but if they see their own blood from a cut on their finger, they will scream and cry as if they're going to die, or possibly even just faint. Bear in mind that in the hospital ER, the more complaints patients make, generally speaking, the less serious their injuries really are. The third level of patience is patience in the face of conflict, sometimes considered as patience on the secondary school level. This is patience in the face of mental suffering, which arises as a result of coming into conflict with other people. The fourth level of patience is patience in the face of temptation, sometimes considered as patience on the college level. All the previous forms of patience are toward things we hate, but this one is more difficult because it is patience towards the things we like and which are a temptation to us. For example, things like bribes. The fifth level of patience is sensitivity towards self-improvement, or not being stubborn, sometimes considered as patience on the postgrad level because it is patience in the face of criticism. Some people can tolerate all forms of physical hardship, physical suffering, mental anguish, and temptation, but if anyone gives them a piece of advice, they will turn their back on that person who gave it to them. When a person of knowledge teaches them something useful out of compassion, a truly patient person will follow the advice given with respect and humility, without ifs or buts or answering back. This is why if they are taught something, they start by listening. Then they do what they have been advised without showing reluctance, but thinking of the compassion of that person who has taken the trouble to give a piece of advice to them, which might have taken a lot of trouble and risk on that person's part. So don't just think the untransformed bad habits in yourself need you to grit your teeth and bear it. This is a rather passive approach to being patient. As you can see from the 5 different levels, patience can actually be an active and transformative quality to develop in yourself. So now we come to the part of the live stream where we try to answer some of the questions sent in by viewers. My question this session comes from Teresa Koo of Los Angeles. So here comes the question. I would like to ask what would be the correct course of action for a Buddhist, especially a monk, if they are asked to accept donations or money from people such as bank robbers. If their intention is good to the monastic community in donating, is the money they donated considered pure and without karmic consequence? Hi Teresa, and thanks for another stimulating question about monks and money. I remember your last question was about whether monks could receive personal donations of money, and today's question is about whether monks can or should accept ill-gotten gains. It reminds me of the story linked with Dhammapada verse 67. In other words, a wise man should not do anything that he would regret at a later time. In that story, the Buddha comments to Ananda when they see a bag of loot abandoned in a field by a robber during his escape, saying, "That is indeed a very poisonous snake," so that a farmer overhears and is not tempted to take the bag of loot for himself. If the farmer were to pick up the money, as he is tempted to do, it will be a danger for him like handling a poisonous snake, because the authorities will eventually trace the evidence for the robbery back to him, and he will be punished, possibly executed for a crime he did not do. Knowingly accepting stolen goods is certainly a crime. Accepting a charitable donation derived in a dishonest way is a little bit more of a gray area, especially since the money could come from embezzlement, tax evasion, a dishonest occupation like smuggling or exploitation, or perhaps just something like usury, which means excessive interest on loans. In the latter cases, you could argue that the miscreant donors have a choice what they do with the money, and if they keep the money rather than donating it, they would miss out on any chance of merit that may transform their life for the better. Unfortunately, according to the law, a person knowingly accepting stolen goods becomes accessory to the crime. There's a case from my own temple in Thailand a couple of years ago, getting into trouble by accepting donations not from a bank robber, but actually from a bank CEO, who was later found to be skimming from his own bank. When the CEO was jailed, he could not pay back the money he had embezzled, so the government came and demanded the money from the temple instead. In fact, most of the money had already been spent on charitable works, but the government was not interested in this and threatened the temple with closure. Not sure whether the law in other countries could be used in the same way as in Thailand, but eventually the temple had to fundraise the missing money all over again to pay the government back for the bank chief's crime, which was a major headache because the missing funds amounted to many millions of baht. In my talks on the law of karma, I've regularly given the example of a person who steals $100 and then donates the $100 to a good cause, earning both good and bad karma, which is to illustrate that the two actions do not cancel one another out. The good karma will provide for that donor in their future lifetimes, but the fact the money was stolen means that their wealth that comes to that person will be easily destroyed or stolen from them. So there are issues of purity which can be improved upon. Your question, though, seems mostly to concern the recipient of the donation to the temple and whether they are acting responsibly. In practice, it's very inconvenient to say to a potential donor, that donation would be very welcome, but I must ask you before I accept it whether you earn the money by right livelihood. It would be inconvenient even to ask less leading questions like, excuse me, did your husband agree to this donation? Or, excuse me, am I cutting into your kid's allowance by accepting this donation? Apart from being very embarrassing, it would be very off-putting for donors to be subjected to the Spanish Inquisition every time they wanted to give a donation. The best monks can generally do is to be diligent in educating their congregation members in morality and how to maximize merit through the giving of honestly earned donations. In conclusion, although these days monks are more aware than they used to be about their legal responsibilities, I don't expect to see any changes in the near future for temple donations to bring them in line with, let's say, campaign donations to a political party where they have to vet their donors. For today, let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. For those of you who like to visit the temple in Azusa to bring offerings, please be informed that as pandemic case rates are on the rise again, our temple is still using the offering site in the parking lot next to the main temple building between 10 and 11 a.m. each day. If you have trouble with the passcode on the gate or wish to visit at a different time, please call Jenny on 562-716-2961. You can bring offerings of food each day between 10 and 10:45 a.m. Most recently, every day there is a short ceremony for requesting 5 precepts, offering of the midday meal, and receiving a blessing between 10:45 and 11:15 a.m. And on Friday, this ceremony is conducted in English. For those unable to visit in person, all the other ways of accepting money transfers to DIMC are still available, whether it be mail-in checks, bank transfers, Zelle, or Venmo. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merit of all continuing to take the opportunity to support the temple in this way. For the reasons mentioned before, at the temple there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim. You can, however, continue to access Dhamma teachings in English through several convenient channels. For aficionados of Zoom meetings, you can access the Inner Peace channel content by joining the Zoom channel ID 970-1192-2337, and the meeting passcode is 072. As you'll see from the program schedule on the slide, content is available for most of the day now, 7 days a week, and brings together all the usual programming from our temple with the English and Spanish content from the various branches across the US. Times shown on this slide are for the West Coast. For content local to Azusa, you can continue to follow teachings at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For those of you particularly interested in my talks, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which I've set up in my own name. From the current Peace Point schedule, every Sunday morning you have got me with live material and archive material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon appears every Thursday evening. And for families listening in, you may be interested in a special show for children in English known as Shining Stars that goes out between 6 and 6:30 p.m. every Monday evening, with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and on-demand programming, you can also download the MindJam app for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. It now has push notifications to keep you up to date with upcoming activities on the Inner Peace channel, such as the Full Moon Meditations. So this session, we have looked at the topic of Introduction to Meditation and Spiritual Transformation, Developing Vision. My next live session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning. I'll see if circumstances allow me to move on to topics in the Enlightened Living series. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers you can email your questions about meditation or what you have heard in the lecture to the email address you can see spelled out on the slide, and I'll do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you'll be inspired to develop a vision for your own journey of spiritual transformation. So for today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.